You ready to do this, Mark?
Oh, you know I'm ready to do this. Punch it, Chewie.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot tonight is Mark Boucher.
What's up, everybody? How's it going? How you doing, Spencer?
I'm good, man. We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 125. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear holes. Mark Boucher in the house, episode 125. Mark, what is going on? How are you?
Not too much, man. Just chilling in the old Virginia. Basically just doing the old work thing, doing the 9 to 5. Basically, I guess I can talk a little bit about myself. So basically I have, first of all, I'm from the Good Morning Guys podcast, if you haven't heard of it.
It's a good podcast, by the way. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoy it. But yeah, in addition to doing that, I have my normal 9 to 5 job where I'm a service valet for a car dealership. That's, pays the bills kind of thing. But I'm also a part-time worship and youth leader at my church. So I get to choose and then rehearse with the band and then lead the music for our church. And then I lead up our youth group. Very ministry minded. So I have a lot of time focused on that. So that's pretty much me. And then, obviously I'm married. My wife, Kristen, and I have been married for about a year and a half now. And of course,
is that all?
Yeah, it's only been a year and a half. When we were at 300, gosh, we had gotten married in September of 17, and then 300 was in
May of 18. Yeah.
Yep. So we hadn't been married that long. We're pretty much still newlyweds, but yeah.
That's crazy because I was thinking back to 300 because you and I and Patrick Novosel and my brother and Lem and Will, and I'm trying to think who else, because we all rented this house through Airbnb, and your wife was there, and for some reason you guys just seemed very comfortable with each other, and so I just naturally assumed you guys have probably been married for quite a number of years.
Oh, for sure. Well, the thing is, we had been dating for 3 or 4 years before we actually got married.
Okay, maybe that's what I was picking up on then.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I was you did not come off like newlyweds.
Yeah, I mean, every so often our newlywed shows, but I mean, we're just so comfortable around each other, and we're both nerds, so that helps. But I mean, she's my best friend. For sure. But, yeah. But, it's just my wife and I, and, we have a dog, Cisco. He's a little chihuahua, long-haired chihuahua. He makes frequent appearances on our podcast. Not by intention, but,
happy accidents.
Yes, absolutely. But, I mean, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Obviously, I'm a gamer. That's how, honestly, I got to know you. For sure, It was through the Married to the Games podcast in that community. So I'm, obviously big into gaming. Right now, the biggest thing I'm into is Apex Legends. I'm all gung-ho on Apex Legends. I bought the battle pass for it and all that kind of stuff, and I play it pretty regularly with several people from our community and the Married to the Games community. So yeah. For sure.
I've got Apex Legends and I've got it downloaded. I have yet to jump in and play it though.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I downloaded it, I think right after we got back from our cruise and our Disney World vacation. And the boys then really wanted me to jump into Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, yeah.
So I literally, like, just a few days ago, finished the platinum for Kingdom Hearts 1.
Wow, congrats to you.
Yeah, I did it in 2 playthroughs, not 3, which seemed to probably be the easier way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so that's what I've been doing, focusing on kind of gaming, and then now I'm into Kingdom Hearts 2. So
you're going backwards.
Well, see, I did Kingdom Hearts 1, now I'm doing 2, and then I'll do 3.
Oh,
so
okay, I see. Okay,
yeah.
I gotcha.
I went back to the beginning.
Oh, I thought you said you did 3 first. I'm sorry.
No. That was Kingdom Hearts 1, which was hard because there was some... there's a speed run trophy you have to get, one where you can't change any armor, and one where you can't use any continues. You have to reload from save points.
Oh, my goodness.
And that, it takes a little bit of planning on how to figure that out to make it happen in 2 playthroughs.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I attempted to actually play 3, having not played 1 or 2 or any of the ones in between, just because like I was so hyped about it after years of like, when's Kingdom Hearts 3 going to come out? And it finally comes out. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to jump in, and I played it for about an hour, and I was like, I do not understand what is going on at all.
So here's the thing with RPG games. It's like, if you're playing something that's in an established series where like one game is actually a continuation of another game, jumping in like a game or 2 down the road, man, that's just not a great idea because there's too much backstory.
Yeah, I learned that real quick.
Yeah, and it definitely assumes like, oh, if you're playing the 3rd game in the series, we're going to assume you know who our main protagonists are and kind of what's going on. And yeah, it's something I would recommend. Like, I definitely recommend playing those games, but like if you wanted to get into 3, but you didn't want to go back and do 1 and 2, there's some pretty good YouTube videos that'll kind of basically catch you up on the whole story and kind of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
something to consider.
Yeah, I just didn't feel too bad about it after I heard several like huge fans of Kingdom Hearts were like, I don't understand this. I'm like, okay, I don't feel bad about it. If fans of the franchise can't understand it, then I don't too feel bad about it.
The other thing is too is that like I've only played the mainline games, so in between Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, there came out I think 2 games. One was Chain of Memories, which was like a 2D sprite-based card game, but it picked up the story and kind of told its own story, which was just kind of a segue to Kingdom Hearts 2. And then I think there was also a game called 358 Over 2 Days that may have came out before that. And then between 2 and 3, there was like Dream Drop Distance, Birth by Sleep, like all these other like little small games. Mm-hmm. And so if you go directly from game 1 to game 2, it feels different, and you don't start with the same characters, and there's these new characters, and you don't know what's going on. I had to go back and watch a video of like, okay, what happened in the Chain of Memories game? Because it doesn't pick up right where the first game ends.
Oh,
but
weird.
But Chain of Memories, though, the little game they made for like, the whatever it was, like the Game Boy Advance back then, that story picks up right when Kingdom Hearts 1 finishes. So if you played all the games, like story-wise, you'd be fine. But just skip the little small games and just hit the big games and watch a quick video and you're fine.
Makes sense.
But yeah, it's complicated. It's kind of like the Final Fantasy games, right?
Oh yeah.
Each Final Fantasy game is fine. You can play it on its own because it's its own separate game. Until you got to Final Fantasy X, and then they made the true sequel of a Final Fantasy game, X-2. And that was like, okay, don't play 10-2 without playing 10, because then none of it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Whereas you could play 7, and then you could play 8, and they don't relate to one another.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah, I'm not that huge on RPGs anyways. I'm more like shooters and like action-adventure type games and stuff like that. I've tried my hand at RPGs. I think really the only Final Fantasy I really got into was 9. And that's probably one of the ones that, like, when you look back at history, people don't really think, like, oh, yeah, Final Fantasy IX, it's one of the best. But, I
think of the PS1 era, that's probably the second favorite Final Fantasy game, though. I think Final Fantasy VII's the high watermark. Then I know a lot of fans love 9, and then kind of 8 was kind of the less loved Final Fantasy, we'll say.
Yeah.
But, you know, everyone's got their own thing, right?
Absolutely. So, Spencer, how's things going on your end?
So, man, my last week has been kind of crazy since the last time I was here in the Fortress of Nerditude. Let me ask you this, Mark. You don't have kids, so you probably have not gone through this. But let me rephrase this. I'm going to give you some advice if you guys do end up having kids. Do you have a couch in your home?
We do.
Okay. Does the couch have cushions that you can separate from the couch that you can like pull completely off? Or are they the kind of cushions that are sewn onto the couch that are kind of like permanently fixed to it?
They are permanently fixed to the couch. We actually had a couch that did have cushions that would pull away, but we actually got rid of that and got a brand new one that has like, it's like leather and has like reclining seats and all sorts of stuff in it. So yeah, it doesn't pull apart like the other one did.
Okay, perfect. Let me tell you something. That's a rookie mistake, and I have found out the hard way.
Okay.
If you end up having kids, what happens is these little rugrat munchkin hellion children, they jump up on your couch, and what they do is because they're small, they stand on your couch. They'll lean their back against the couch, and then they'll kind of put their feet. So they kind of end up making like one side of like an isosceles triangle, which continues to put pressure on all the stitching. And our couch has like had the cushions, like the back of them where the cushions attached to the back of the couch rip off. And then the cushions themselves have ripped in the back along the seams. And it's like you could see like the fill material underneath.
Oh, gosh.
And so like I've gotten to the point where like it finally just got too ripped that I'd had enough. We've gone and looked at like the cost of new couches, and we've decided we're going to get new couches, but probably not till closer to Christmas. Mm-hmm. Kind of make it a Christmas present for the family. So instead, we went and got some, needles that were kind of bent and curved and some thread, and we spent like 3.5 hours stitching back up these cushions together. And then stitching the cushions back to the back of the couch. And like, you can't really see very well. So you have to like lean way over and kind of get this like weird kind of hunch motion. And then you're trying to sew like by feel. And it's like you're poking yourself in the fingers. And yeah, if you have kids, I have found out it's a rookie mistake to have a couch that has cushions that are permanently attached. Because those kids, man, they're going to find a way to destroy that. So the next couch we get, I'm going to be able to take every one of those cushions off. They're not going to be able to break it. That's my plan. I'm just letting you know that I spent 3.5 hours this weekend sewing a couch back together. And that is fatherhood right there for you. Because when you're single and you don't have kids, man, if a couch goes bad, you just toss a blanket over it. Or, you eventually pitch it and go find a new one or whatever.
Well, it may have been a rookie mistake to get ones with the cushions sewn on, but it's not a rookie mistake to get insurance for said couch.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had my couches just long enough that they're outside of that window. And I was like, dang it!
Yeah, because we have insurance on the couch that we just got. So if any sort of damage comes to it, they'll fix it or replace it. Yeah, and especially like our couch actually has built-in plugs and USB cords or USB ports and stuff like that. So yeah, anytime any of that stuff goes bad, we can just call and they'll come and fix it or replace it if they can't fix it.
Are they fast charging USB though?
I wouldn't say fast charging. They're decent charging, I suppose.
All right. Yeah, I'm so addicted to the fast charging, like the 2 or the 2.1 amp chargers.
Oh yeah.
Like I won't use anything else. If I have to plug something else, I'm like, this could take like 4 hours. Like I can charge in 45 minutes. What? Like this is 2019, people.
Yep, absolutely.
Why are we selling this old technology? That's like selling 8 tracks. Come on. Move on. Let's see. What else did I do? I busted out my pit barrel cooker and I cooked up about 20 pounds of pulled pork. I smoked it up. Took it to my mom's place. We kind of had a dinner over at her house with some relatives and friends, and we did that. Gosh, what else? My wife and I have gone back and we've restarted the last season of Peter Capaldi's Doctor Who.
Nice.
Yeah, we've we've seen all of the Christopher Eccleston season, the David Tennant season, the Matt Smith seasons. We've seen all of those numerous times. We've only watched the Capaldi seasons once each, and we got about 3 episodes into his last season, and then just like life got really busy, and we just kind of like forgot about it.
Oh yeah.
And I want to get to Jodie Whittaker, and we're big Doctor Who fans, but I got to be honest, Capaldi, I've had a harder time connecting with his version of the Doctor because I so loved David Tennant and Matt Smith.
Yeah. It was kind of a different direction for them to go a little older than there is, younger guy. But and especially like series 8 of that show, like it's just jarring how different of a Doctor Peter Capaldi is.
Yeah.
They kind of like reined him in a little bit and sort of made him a little bit more lighthearted in series 9 and 10 to make him a little more, like the way he was before. But like series 8, like I had to power through that because he's just like was making a bunch of just non-Doctor decisions and giving a lot of non-Doctor attitude. And I just wasn't digging on it. But once 9 and 10 came through, like I was loving Peter Capaldi, and I was go ahead.
I think I like him, but I don't love him as the Doctor.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're now watching through his final season, and we're looking forward to finishing that, and then going to Jodie Whittaker's first season and kind of seeing how she does. Anyway, I love Doctor Who. I'm excited that we're rewatching it, getting back into it, and we're gonna get caught up because we've been watching a lot of other things. Last week I said I just finished up Cobra Kai, and I really enjoyed that more than I thought I would. And I've been watching The Magicians, and Game of Thrones is obviously just restarting up. So like there's lots going on. Now, the other thing that I do all the time, besides listening to podcasts and music, is I listen to audiobooks.
Nice. Okay.
And so I just finished Lev Grossman's The Magicians series. Again, for the second time. I kind of gave it a re-listen because the last time I listened to it was a few years back. And I'm looking for something to listen to, Mark, and I'm thinking, okay, what do I want? What do I want to do? And I spent maybe like an hour on Audible just like sampling different things, and I almost pulled the trigger on Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pritchard, but I didn't. And then eventually I went, I just need something that I can listen to that I love. So I went back to one of my favorites of all time. It's only 3 books so far in this series of what eventually will be a 10-book series. But I restarted the Stormlight Archives and restarted The Way of Kings again. Okay. And man, it's Brandon Sanderson's opus. I mean, this is going to be his magnum opus. It's going to be his granddaddy of series, of all the stuff that he writes. And he writes a ton of stuff. This just, it's so freaking good.
Nice. Awesome.
And so I'd recommend it, Super Friends. If you haven't listened to or read The Way of Kings, start that book. There's 3 books out: The Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, and Oathbringer. Those are the 3 so far in that series. He's working on writing the 4th one right now. Really, really good stuff. Really good world building.
Nice. So. Awesome. One I would recommend to you, since you enjoy Doctor Who so much, I don't know how much you jump into Classic Who at all, if you ever have.
I've never.
Never have? Okay.
Nope.
Have you? So you've never seen anything from the 4th Doctor, Tom Baker?
Nope. I started with Christopher Eccleston.
Okay.
And of the new Who variety, and I've never seen anything Classic Who.
Okay. Well, just still a good place to jump in anyway. So Tom Baker, the guy, he was the 4th Doctor, probably the most well-known of all the classic Doctors, pre-Christopher Eccleston. And
you mean Sylvester McCoy is not the most well-known?
He'd probably be close up there, but Tom Baker, he was the longest-running one in the Classic Who lineup. He's the most recognizable with his really long scarf and this nice hat, and he's constantly referred to in New Who as well. He was in the 50th anniversary special,
right?
So he actually wrote his own Doctor Who story.
Really?
Yeah, into a book. It's called Scratch Man, and he actually recorded an audiobook of it. It's him narrating the book.
Cool.
And so, I highly recommend it. I bought it. Technically, full disclosure, I have not listened to it yet. However, it's Doctor Who. It's Tom Baker. You can't go wrong with it. And I bought it for my wife, actually, and she loves it. So I would recommend taking a listen. At some point, I am actually going to listen to it myself. But I would definitely, if you got a moment and you're not, if you're looking for something to scratch that itch, then I would definitely go for that.
Nice. Well, I've got probably a good 120 hours of Stormlight Archives now to listen to because I'm going to do those 3 books.
Okay, so it's going to be a bit.
It's going to be a bit. However, I do need to use some credits on Audible. So I probably go out and I'll probably grab that just so it's in my library. So then when I finish these, I can jump over to that and get that. Scratch Man.
Yep.
I made a note and I'm going to pick that up.
Nice.
Based on Mark Boucher's recommendation, Super Friends.
I endorse this message.
Nice. This Audible presentation is brought to you by Mark Boucher. I'm sure that's what it's going to say, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Your 5% is in the mail. Mark, what do you say we get to some Rebel Intelligence and we see what's going on out there in the wide world of nerd and pop culture?
I'm down for it.
Now, the only thing we got to do, though, first is we got to kill some Bothans.
Listen, when you do what we do, you just got to kill some Bothans.
You just have to. I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Mark, we're into Rebel Intelligence. Bothans have been slaughtered for their news. What do you have for me this week?
Okay, so first and foremost, the House of Mouse, the old Disney. Yeah, they released a big one this week when they talked about their brand new streaming service. It is called Disney Plus.
Yep.
This has been long rumored. The rumblings of this streaming service coming. Things had been pulled from Netflix and all that kind of stuff in preparation for Disney going on their own and doing their own thing. And here it is. They announced this streaming service, which will have basically I don't know if it's all of the Pixar stuff, but a lot of the Pixar stuff, a lot of Disney stuff. It's basically going to be the home for Star Wars. It's going to be the home for Marvel stuff. All the, the main MCU movies and the Star Wars movies, the entire Star Wars, I'm assuming all 9 movies.
Yeah.
And
eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, episode 9 hasn't come out as of this recording.
Right.
But, so that's basically going to be the home for all that stuff, plus a bunch of different, original series based on those franchises.
Right.
And so, I'm very interested in it. It's supposed to drop November 12th. It's $6.99 per month, which is really good. That's less than Netflix.
That's such okay. So let me jump in here.
Yeah.
I think that price point. So my wife and I had this conversation because our kids watch a ton of Disney stuff, right? And Disney Plus says eventually they're going to have all Disney movies available. Mm-hmm. Everything in their old back catalog, everything that's, goes in and out of the vault. And obviously, like they said that Star Wars 1 through Star Wars 7 will be available, I think, starting day 1. I think they've got to wait till the licensing for The Last Jedi with Netflix runs its course. Then, then that will come. And there's a couple other Marvel movies that are similar things. They've got to let their existing contract expire, but then they'll come over to Disney Plus. Mm-hmm. But we had this conversation, though, Mark, where we said, okay, at what price point is it too expensive to get? Because a lot of Disney movies we have, and obviously there's some original programming that I'm going to want to see. And my wife and I were kind of talking about that, and I said $15 a month, I would still probably pay for it. But if it gets up to around 20, I say, like, I don't know if I do 20 a month. Just because there's so many other options out there with Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime. There's the CBS, there's HBO, there's lots and lots and lots of individual streaming services.
Oh,
but they come out with a $7 a month price tag.
Boom. Absolutely.
That is, for $7 a month, there's so much content available. Like, it's ridiculous. Now, I don't think it's going to stay $7 a month, permanent, long term. It won't be $7 a month 5 years from now.
Oh, yeah. Won't. Never will be. Never.
But I guarantee it's going to be one of those things where if you get in at $7 when it drops, slowly over time, they'll slowly bump you up $1 or $2. But they're going to come to a point where they're going to say, like, hey, any new user now starts in at the $10 or $11 range. But if you may still be grandfathered, and you may only have been bumped up to like $8, so like you still would be getting a better deal.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I don't know how you don't jump on this. I mean, $7 a month, like freaking, that's like a cup of coffee at like a more expensive upscale coffee place.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Yeah, and I mean, like, it's worth it enough to me alone because like I have all the Star Wars movies. Yeah.
Right.
I don't have all the Marvel movies. I don't have all the Pixar movies. I don't have all the Disney movies. And to me, at least this is my outlook on it, I am okay more with, instead of the bigger upfront value paying for like DVDs and stuff, I'm better off, I feel, taking it in smaller bites. So like the $7 a month doesn't hurt me as much. And for just that content alone is worth it, in my opinion. And then they have all this original content they're coming out with,
yep,
which is all starring like, the actors that have all been in these big movies.
Yep.
So just to, name them off, we've got The Winter Soldier and Falcon. We've
Yep.
got WandaVision, which is obviously Scarlet Witch and the Vision. Their own series. You've got an original Loki series starring Tom Hiddleston.
Yep.
One of the ones that really intrigued me was Marvel actually had a comic line back in the day called What If, where they basically took a lot of their stories and basically turned them on their head to kind of give them a twist to it, and like, well, what if it happened this way?
Right. Yeah.
And in this case, they're doing that same thing, and they kind of pitched the idea for the first episode. And the first episode, I don't know if this is spoilerific or not, but so spoilers. What if Agent Carter got the super soldier serum, and Steve Rogers got the Iron Man suit from Howard Stark?
Ooh.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me. I'm very interested to see where they go with that. So all the Marvel stuff that they're doing original wise is incredible, and then you've got your Star Wars, which obviously we'll talk more about in a little bit.
Right.
But like with the Mandalorian and that the one with, shoot, I'm forgetting his name. I want to say K2SO, but that's the robot.
Right.
But yep. His name is the guy from Rogue One.
Cassian Andor.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
A more focused story on him, and obviously K2SO, and I believe his name is Diego Luna is going to be in it as well as Alan Tudyk. So
here's the only thing that they didn't announce with Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually two things I was looking for. One is all the Disney Junior stuff going to be available over there. And they talked a little bit about it. Some of the shows, but not like all the shows, I don't think. Because that's only one of the main reasons we're keeping cable right now is my kids watch a lot of the Disney Junior.
That makes sense,
But realistically, for me, though, if they would have announced like Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Defenders, if they would have announced, Punisher, they would have announced that those are going to show up on Disney Plus. And I know they probably can't contractually for a little while still, but if they would have announced that and said, and with the original showrunners and the actors and actresses, I think I would have freaking like flipped my lid with excitement.
Absolutely.
Like, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think there's probably some red tape there with Netflix and all that.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Never say never.
Well, we got some information a little while back ago that basically once they left Netflix, I think there's a 2-year hiatus before those characters can appear again on like a TV or a streaming service. Now, that doesn't mean they can't start filming and drop news ahead of time, but they can't be released for like 2 years after their last episode aired.
That makes sense. Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
anyway, Disney Plus is looking good. It's looking really attractive. And I just wish that we could have signed up for it already. Like, that was the one thing I was hoping for, that it was going to be like, and you can now go pre-sign up or, something, reserve your spot or whatever. Because that's got to roll out before November 12th, right?
You would think you could at least sign up for it, because I feel like if they just drop it all November 12th, they're going to get hit with so much
their servers
traffic.
will go down. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm sure it's coming. Maybe, it's a bummer that they didn't do it this week, but I'm sure at some point they're going to have to, put the pre-sign up out before they actually launch the service. But yeah, man, I'm super looking forward to this. I am on board with getting it.
Oh, me too. All right, let me ask you a question here, Mark. Did you ever watch any of the Hellboy movies, or have you read the comics?
I think I watched the first Hellboy movie with Ron Perlman. Like, I think I watched most of that movie, and honestly, it didn't really grab me that much. But I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with who he is, that he is a comic book character. I don't know his full backstory, but yeah, that's about it.
So in that first Ron Perlman movie, you get, pretty much the origin story of Hellboy. I never read it as a comic, but I remember at the time when, I think it was like 2004 when that movie came out. Mm-hmm. Comic book movies, I mean, at that point we'd had like literally like some of like the first 2 X-Men movies, and I think maybe the first 2 Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With Tobey Maguire. And then this Hellboy came out, and it was different. It was darker. It had a different tone. It was Guillermo del Toro. And so like it was different. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that movie. Even though it wasn't like a great movie, like it's not going to be like one of the best we're going to talk about years from now, it still was cool and did some kind of cool things. So I've been really pumped to see this new take on Hellboy, which kind of looks like they were going to kind of redo it some and kind of re-kick it off. And it came out this weekend. I have not seen it yet. However, it has been getting a lot of bad reviews in the press. And here's the thing. It only made about $12 million in its opening weekend.
Ouch.
And to kind of put that in perspective, Shazam, which was in its second weekend, after it already had like a sneak preview 2 weeks before that, Shazam in its second weekend brought in $25 million. So it didn't even make half of what Shazam made on its second weekend. I think Hellboy was made for about $50 million. And so it looks like it's probably going to struggle to make that money.
Yeah, it's going to have to look for it to make it up in foreign markets for sure.
Yeah, it's going to have to try to make it up that and then also, DVD, streaming, that sort of thing. Which the sad thing is that, and I haven't seen this, but when I see something like this that I've kind of been excited about seeing, and I'm hoping for something kind of cool, and then to hear that it's just being critically slammed, and then it doesn't make hardly any money at all, you look at it and you go, yeah, this is going to be a flop, which is bad because then the likelihood of getting a good version of it significantly drops because people don't want to touch a property that's seemingly can't seem to get off the ground in an era, especially with comic books, in an era where every comic book idea is being greenlit and making money. I mean, Aqua freaking Man made a boatload of money, and it's Aquaman, like one of like the most ridiculed comic book heroes for decades, and it made like $1 billion.
Yeah, it helps when you do it right.
That is true. I mean, there is that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was kind of I was kind of excited about Hellboy just because This is David Harbour, who, if you don't know, was on Stranger Things.
Chief Hopper.
Yep. And he's great on that show. And I was like, man, he's finally going to get his chance to really shine on the big screen. Now, I don't know if he's been in any previous films or if he's just been mainly on TV. But I was excited about that. And I have a love-hate relationship with Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of times, for instance, when Batman v Superman came out, and that just got some really low Rotten Tomatoes scores. I'm like, you know what? Forget them. I'm just gonna go and see the movie and enjoy it. But I saw the initial score on Rotten Tomatoes for Hellboy, and it was 9%.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, that's pretty low. Now, admittedly, Batman v Superman wasn't that low. I think it was in the 20s.
Yeah, it was in the 20s to start with.
But let's be honest, I think it deserved to be where it was. I mean, I wanted it to be more than it was. I desperately wanted it to be more than it was, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Most of the time, Rotten Tomatoes is pretty accurate, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can be way off every now and again, but when it's that low to begin with, yeah, you really have to love that source material and be a uber fan. Otherwise,
oh, for sure,
it's just not going to catch.
Yeah, and it's a bummer. It's a bummer for sure. But
yeah. Anyway, I'm still probably going to go see it because I'm going to use my AMC A-list and use it as one of my free movies.
There you go. You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, Mark, what else you got?
All right, so apparently they're making a Tomb Raider sequel, so that's a thing.
Huh.
So, full disclosure, I have never actually seen the first Tomb Raider film. To me, it looked good. It looked very reminiscent of, the recent Tomb Raider games. The whole reboot, Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, all those games, which were phenomenal, and gave it a little more of a grounded, I guess as much of a grounded Lara Croft as you can make. And so they released a live-action version of it with Alicia Vikander as the lead role of Lara Croft. And from what I heard, it wasn't that bad. It was a decent movie. I think I remember Ed Placencia from Married to the Game saying that he really enjoyed that movie. He loved it. Again, still haven't seen it. And apparently it wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't that, huge of a movie. But apparently they're writing a script for a second Tomb Raider right now. So I did a little bit of research on it. I went back and looked at the box office versus the budget of the movie, the first movie, and it said that the budget was between 90 and 106 million to make the movie, and the movie made about 274 million, which I've heard it said that basically rule of thumb is if it makes 2 to 3 times what its budget is, then it's considered profitable. So if you look at it that way, the movie was profitable. So it wasn't like gangbusters like your Avengers was, but
sure, yeah.
But yeah, apparently it was enough. That Deadline reported that a script for Tomb Raider 2 is in the works. And so it's looking like Alicia Vikander is going to reprise her role as Lara Croft. So what do you think about this, Spencer?
So, in full honesty, I have not seen the movie either. I have no plans to see the movie. I'm not really a big fan of the video game series, if I'm just honest. I played the first one of kind of the reboot, and I played it after I'd played, I think, all of the Uncharted games. Mm-hmm. So I think I'd played the Uncharted trilogy on the PS4, the remasters of 1, 2, and 3, and then I played Uncharted 4. And I love Nathan Drake, and I love the Uncharted games. And so there's definitely the big comparison between Tomb Raider and Uncharted. They're very much an action oriented type of game with similar mechanics and gameplay, weapons, that sort of thing. Plus, my brother always would like, oh, dude, the bow and arrow is so satisfying. It's so great to use. And I never really got into it. I've always felt like, for me, the best bow and arrow experience I ever had was The Last of Us.
Oh, yeah.
When you upgrade that thing is just so buttery smooth. And so I remember playing it and going, okay, the mechanics of the game are okay. They feel good. I mean, they're not the best I've played, but they're not bad. Like, there's nothing that stands out as being horrible. But I played that game and the story was so hard to follow and just so non-existent. It was like, okay, why am I doing this? Okay, just because I have to? Okay, great. Let me just, knock this out to go do whatever. And the fact that the game is called Tomb Raider, and you only had to do technically one tomb as part of the main story in order to keep the main story going and finish the game. Mm-hmm. I did that one, and I didn't touch whatever it was, like the other 19 that you could go find and explore. And I felt like that was a really big missed opportunity. It's like, if your game is called Tomb Raider, you should make the majority of that game about, or at least half the game about going into tombs and like doing the puzzle solving and, figuring out how to get around things and escape and whatever. And it just wasn't. And so I kind of felt like that was a big missed opportunity. So, not a huge fan of that series right now at present. When I saw the movie come out, I saw the trailer, I'm like, it just looked to me like a ripoff of that first game as far as the story.
Oh, yeah, almost verbatim.
Yeah, and I went, I didn't like the game, and the story in the game was really weak. Mm-hmm. So if they're doing a movie that's going to feel just like that, I can pass.
Gotcha. Yeah, I get what you're saying, for sure. I personally, I played the Tomb Raider games. I played the first one, and then I played Rise, and then I started Shadow. And then a little game called Spider-Man got in the way.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And there were some better games to play at that point. But I guess the movie actually pulled from the first one and also Rise of the Tomb Raider. And so they sort of incorporated the two. Or at least that's the impression I got. And I personally enjoyed the story. More so in Rise, they had more of the tomb raiding, going into tombs and stuff. So okay. I think I get what you're saying, and I think they kind of expounded more upon her going into the tombs and stuff and doing puzzles and all kinds of stuff like that. But overall, I enjoyed the story. There were parts of it that got a little too supernatural for me.
Okay.
It was just kind of out of left field. But in any case, I very much enjoyed it. So I just never got around to watching the first movie. Would I watch it if I had a chance? Sure. I think I would enjoy it for sure. So
at this point, though, if you had to pay to watch it, would you?
Maybe to rent it, Redbox it.
Okay. I'm sure you can stream it somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. If I were to find it on Vudu or something like that, I'd probably go back and watch it. Would I buy it? No, probably not. Okay. There are much bigger things that I can spend that kind of money on. But yeah, I mean, apparently Warner Brothers thinks it's profitable enough to go back. Give it
another go. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, Super Friends, if you're down with Alicia Vikander and more Tomb Raider, let me know how that movie goes when it comes out. I'll be happy to hear from you. Now, I will tell you something, though, that I did watch last night, and I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the season, that I know I'm not the only one who watched it. That's the final season of Game of Thrones. That thing is going to be... I mean, let's be honest, this show's been a juggernaut for quite a while now. But it's going to be a juggernaut because it's the final season. I don't think anything's going to touch it right now.
Oh, for sure. I couldn't go anywhere without hearing about Game of Thrones. and like, it's coming on in this amount of time. It's coming on in this amount of time. Oh my gosh, it's starting. And I'm
so I got some interesting figures here for you. So
okay.
Twitter yesterday, so we're recording on Monday, so yesterday was Sunday. Twitter racked up over 5 million tweets about Game of Thrones just on Sunday alone.
That's disgusting.
About Game of Thrones. And, spoiler alert, Sam revealing the truth about Jon Snow's parentage was the most tweeted about moment yesterday. And out of all the shows, so far, these are the initial numbers because they're going to fluctuate a little bit. But apparently HBO delivered 17.4 million viewers on Sunday night across kind of all their multiple airings, including streaming, or some of the streaming. I guess not all of it was counted in, which makes the Game of Thrones Season 8 premiere the biggest telecast in HBO history and the most watched scripted entertainment program of the year. I guess the prior holder had been a Big Bang Theory episode back on February 7th. So it beat the numbers for the season finale of season 7, which was about 2 years ago. It had this long hiatus to kind of finish up. HBO says also that it thinks that those numbers could have been even bigger, but they lost. They were in a dispute with Dish, and so Dish wasn't carrying HBO anymore. And then also they said certain streaming partners such as like Amazon, Hulu, and Roku, those numbers aren't being counted in the first round of numbers. And so I guess apparently once those kind of all get counted, they'll kind of average out. Because apparently like last 2 years ago, they were averaging about, once they've, kind of figured out all kind of this, what they consider like the second run numbers from like it's streaming through HBO, through another service. Once those got counted up, they were at somewhere like 32 million views an episode. So they're anticipating it's going to be probably a little higher than that. So obviously, everyone wants to know what's going to happen. It's the final. I've read the books, the 5 books in the Song of Ice and Fire series. We're obviously into territory now that is not covered by the books, and we're getting information that fans that have read the book series have, long held on to these beliefs and what's going to happen, and some of this information that is now being disseminated in the shows. And when this thing all ends, I don't know where I'm going to be as far as wanting to find out what happens in the books, because I could know the ending now of the books. Then again, the books could go elsewhere and do other things, because there's characters in the books that are dead that are alive in the show, and there's characters that are alive in the show that are dead in the books. But I gotta say, 17.4 million viewers, though, that's a lot of eyeballs.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
On a single show for a Sunday evening.
Absolutely. And I was playing Apex Legends. Full disclosure, I'm just not into Game of Thrones. It's just for a couple of different reasons. Well, the first thing is I'm not big on the sex and nudity and stuff in it. I just don't. Yeah. I'd rather not watch that. But also we don't have HBO as well. So yeah, it's just not something I've put my stock in at all. I'm glad other people enjoy it though, and it's doing so well, especially in its final season for sure.
It's for me, like, what's interesting, Mark, is like I was reading the books, and so when you get to some of those scenes in the books, it's really easy to, just kind of skim past paragraphs at a time, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I got the idea. I know what's going on.
Yep.
Don't need the details. With the TV show, though, they definitely have amped up that element at times. There's been a few seasons recently, like some of the last few seasons, where I kind of felt they really kind of tapered off on that, and they kind of, stopped doing it as much, which I was very happy about, because when it comes on, it's kind of like okay, and let's skip forward a little bit here, we'll figure out what dialogue we missed by context going forward. Because my wife and I watch it together.
Oh yeah.
And we don't particularly care to watch that stuff, so it's kind of zip, 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 and then, okay, now we're back into what's going on. But like in the first and the second season, I mean, oh my goodness, you would have thought that there was like a 14-year-old boy writing scenes. He's like, we haven't seen enough nudity in a while, guys. Let's add some more back in.
Not enough boob here. Let's just put one right here.
And so I'm kind of glad that the show kind of moved away from that. It's still there. It is set in a medieval it's a fantasy world, but it's set kind of in a medieval time period. So it does get brutal and things do happen that's just, it's rough to watch. But I mean, those real things did happen, and it's kind of a period piece in a way. And so I get it, but I don't blame people for not watching if they find some of the content objectionable, because it can be very, very rough at times.
Oh, absolutely. My brother and sister-in-law are huge fans of the show, to the point where they have actually created a bracket as to who is going to die and who's going to, I guess, get the Iron Throne at the end.
Sit on the Iron Throne at the end, yeah.
Yeah. They literally have their own brackets set up. So they're
I know who I want to see sit on the Iron Throne at the end. I also know who I absolutely do not want to see, which means that's probably who it's going to be.
That kind of luck, huh?
It's just, if you've read the books, George R.R. Martin, who's the author, he has a habit of just killing characters ruthlessly, brutally, main characters that like he wants you to invest in. Famously, if you've seen the show or read the books, like you kind of follow this one family through the entire first book, and the father, the head of the household, is the big kind of protagonist of the first book. And he loses his head at the end of the first book.
Well, that was Ned Stark, wasn't it?
That's Ned Stark. Character? Yep. And you're like, okay. Now what's gonna happen? Like,
what is this?
I'm following the guy, and now he's dead, and and then kind of all hell sort of kind of breaks loose.
Yeah, that's kind of like Walking Dead and how that is. Basically, nobody's really safe on the show, even though you feel like it might be. But
yep. Yeah, you hit it right there on the head. It's no one's safe. And so, yeah, I'm sure that's how it's going to shake out in the end. Anyway, Game of Thrones is back. It's big. It's awesome. And go out there and watch it if that's what you're into. That is all I have for Rebel Intelligence. Did you have anything else, Mark?
No, sir. Got nothing left to add there.
All right. So, last week I had a conversation with Delvin Cox. We were talking about the Joker. The new trailer for Joker dropped, and we kind of did a spotlight on the character. And so our question of the week was, is the Joker the best comic book villain of all time? And if not, who is? And so, Mark, let me ask you, what do you think? Is the Joker the best comic book villain?
Oh, man, I have such trouble answering this question. Again, full disclosure, I have a personal bias because I am a huge Batman fan. And so, by extension, I'm a huge Joker fan. At the same time, I was actually reading, I think it might have been some comments on one of your socials for Fortress of Nerditude, and somebody mentioned it this way, and I really liked the way that he phrased it. Joker is on the Mount Rushmore of supervillains.
Yeah.
So, is he number one? Maybe. I'd say he's up there with probably, shout-outs to Patrick Novosel, Lex Luthor would probably be up there. Personally, I would go more Joker for number one just because of the intricacies of his character and the fact that this guy is such a homicidal maniac that he's almost unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to do.
Right.
And they kind of hit it on the money with Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight. He's like, I don't have a plan. I just do things.
Yeah.
He just does whatever he feels. And most of the times that involves killing some people. But he's got a very dark past depending on which version of the origin story of the Joker that you read. There's obviously the Killing Joke, which, I guess I won't spoil that too much, but he has a...
We talked about it quite a bit last episode, so yeah, you're fine.
Okay, so he has a really bad day where, he's a struggling comedian. It's not panning out very well. People don't think he's funny. his wife is really just down on him and all that kind of stuff. Then he starts turning to this kind of life of crime, just to try to make ends meet. And then he finds out that his wife has died, and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, there's the old vat of acid.
Yep.
So you mix up that perfect storm, and that's what happens when you have one really bad day. And that's just one example. And in fact, I believe he says in that particular comic that he prefers his story to be multiple choice. So you don't really know if he's actually telling the truth about it or not.
He's a very unreliable narrator.
Absolutely. And so I just love the back and forth between him and Batman for sure, and how they're kind of like destined to do this forever, and he's almost, for lack of a better word, the yin to his yang, or whatever. So yeah, I do have a little bit of a bias saying that Joker is the better of all the villains, but at the same time, I can see where others have their strengths as well. Like Lex Luthor for sure is a big one when he comes to his master intellect and his vast wealth, and his resources to be able to carry out his plans and all kinds of stuff. So I know that's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but I think that's about where I stand. So I'd say
you prefer your answer multiple choice.
Yes. But if I had to say, Joker kind of ekes out in front.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go over to our email, fortivenerd@gmail.com. We have Peter Christensen. He says, "Dear nerds, not sucking up, but Delvin was a great co-host. Still not up to the Hot Ones level, though." We talked about Sean, what's his name? Sean Evans from Hot Ones, the web series. Anyway, he says, "I'm conflicted about the Joker trailer and the Joker in general. Caveat, I only know Batman through the movies. He's supposed to be just a crazy guy, but he always seems to have loyal henchmen, a cleverly decorated arsenal, and impeccable logistics. In practice, he comes off as a normal supervillain with a crazy exterior. I'm very curious about this movie. The trailer makes his mental illness seem like the root of his problems, rather than other movie portrayals where it's a side effect of his villain origin story. The opening scenes where he's happy and taking care of the mother make the turn seem so much darker. Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor, and his weird, emaciated body and preacher mullet creep me out and couldn't be farther from Jared Leto's Juggalo Joker.
Yep.
It did inspire the delightful tweet joke, creating the Joker 1989, throw him in wasted chemicals. Creating the Joker 2019, throw him into society." It says, is the Joker the best comic book villain? My instinct says no, just because Batman isn't really my thing, but I'm coming up very empty for alternatives. The MCU movies have impacted culture so hard that Loki or Thanos have the potential to take that role in the future, but most other villains in comic book movies are either lame, the Mandarin, or good ones, but one and done, Killmonger. The Joker has been portrayed many times in many ways, including by Zach Galifianakis in Lego Batman, and may indeed be the greatest comic book villain ever. Cheers, Peter Christensen.
Nice.
I like what Peter says there. I don't think you're wrong. I definitely don't think you're wrong about Joaquin Phoenix looking like a big different take than the Juggalo Joker that was Jared Leto.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know about Loki and Thanos being kind of up there as far as best villains. Like, I think they're great villains. I just don't know if I don't know that I could put them up there at the top.
Oh yeah, for sure. And definitely the MCU has kind of, not to say, I mean, Thanos was kind of always a big bad in the comics, but the MCU has really sort of raised the bar with that, with Thanos. Going back to what he was saying in his note there, he's got some great points for sure. It's kind of everybody likes to do their own take of the Joker because they don't want to feel like they're making a copy of the last Joker. And I feel like this is sort of pulled a lot from the inspiration of the Killing Joke and that kind of stuff. Is somebody that has been beaten down. He probably has a mental illness, but it's more being exacerbated by, society and the fact that they...
Circumstance, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so that sort of contributes. Now, obviously it remains to be seen whether or not he gets dropped into a vat of chemicals, but it seems like him becoming the Joker is a response to that society instead of the circumstance plus the chemicals. So it's a different take, and obviously this Joker is apparently set on its own. It's not part of the DCEU.
Right. It's a separate entity. It's not going to fall in with kind of the canon timeline.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm interested for sure. At first, when I saw Joaquin Phoenix, I was kind of taken aback a little bit because I wasn't a huge fan of the makeup. It was a lot more clownish than Jokerish, but that's me being a Batman and by extension Joker fan talking. But I'm interested for sure to see where they go with it.
I think it looks super good. It's definitely going to be an opening weekend thing for me.
Yep.
Let's jump over to Facebook. Facebook.com/ForTheNerd. Caleb Albers says, this is an interesting question. Like you guys said, a villain is only as good as its hero, so I think Joker's only good because Batman is such an amazing character in his own right. If Joker didn't have Batman, Joker would be just another crazy madman. So my answer is, taking that fact in mind, there is no greatest villain of all time. They are all the greatest in their own way because of the heroes that fight them. Take away Superman, Lex Luthor is just a corrupt billionaire. Take away Spidey, Doc Ock is just a scientist. Like Vision stated in Civil War, our very strength invites challenge. Challenge incites conflict, and conflict breeds catastrophe. And without catastrophe to fix, there are no heroes. And without heroes, there are no villains. So in short, each and every villain we see on a comic page could be the best villain of all time because they contrast and mirror our heroes. Great heroes, great villains. Okay heroes, okay villains. Equal on both ends, as all things should be. So here's the deal, Caleb. I don't disagree with you. I definitely think that you have to have, especially like we talked about in the last episode with Delvin, the Batman and the Joker are the same. They're the same coin, just different sides of the coin, and they mirror each other so well. And you really do have to have that, right? Because if you have some sort of villain that's way outclassed by the hero, there's no real conflict. There's no real reason to read the comic or watch the movie or listen to the audiobook or whatever. Like, you have to have something there that makes real peril, a real dilemma that you think, hey, the hero may not get out of this. You go back to the old 1966 Batman TV show, and when Egghead has got Batman tied up over a swimming pool full of sharks, and they're like, stay tuned, same bat time, same bat channel. Like, Batman's gonna get out of it. It's really like, oh, is Batman gonna die? No, you knew that he wasn't. It was just, how is he going to get out of this? That's what you wanted to see. So because of that, all of those villains seemed really kind of watered down because you knew there was nothing really at stake there. Mm-hmm. And so I get what Caleb is saying, right? There's got to be something there. But there are villains and then there are villains. Mm-hmm. And I think Joker, Lex Luthor are like villains. Like, they are on that next level up the food chain. They got amazing stories. They got amazing backgrounds. Who was the villain in Aquaman again?
His brother, the Ocean Master.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to remember his name. He's not a great villain. It's a brother. It's kind of a family conflict thing. I'm just not. There's just no way. But I'm going to know Lex Luthor, and I'm going to know the Joker, and I'm going to know Doc Ock and Green Goblin, probably to my dying day. Like, there's just a difference. That's all I'm saying. Like, the dark elves, Malekith from Thor: The Dark World. I mean, it served as the antagonist in that movie, but it wasn't super great. Loki now? I mean, that's a different level. So,
yeah, there's a certain amount of charisma that needs to come to a supervillain in order to make him memorable. And basically Orm was just this power hungry, spoiled little brat that wanted to do whatever he wanted to do, and it wasn't very memorable. Now, you could argue for Black Manta, because he's one of Aquaman's biggest enemies, but even then he was kind of serviceable.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I get Caleb's point for sure, where it's kind of like, the best way I can think of it is it's all about having that good match, like you said, and finding the escalation in that. There's actually a quote from Batman Begins where Batman is talking to Gordon, and Gordon says, "Well, what about escalation?" And Batman's like, "Escalation?" And Gordon says, "We start carrying semi-automatics, they buy automatics. We start wearing Kevlar, they buy armor-piercing rounds." Batman's like, "And?" He said, "And you're wearing a mask and jumping off rooftops." And then he proceeds to talk about the Joker. So it's that same kind of thing. It's a lot of, for example, Batman's Rogues Gallery, they're basically an answer to Batman. They are the antithesis of Batman and that escalation. And so I certainly get where Caleb is coming from when he makes his point there. And I also get your point for sure when, you got escalation, but how truly memorable is that villain for sure.
Yep. I think that's perfect. Like, Caleb's not wrong. I also think though that with the big villains, yes, like he's definitely right. But then there's the smaller ones, and you're like, okay, who's gonna remember some of these years and years and years later, outside of like diehard comic book fans?
Oh yeah, like Batman has a villain called Condiment King. I'll let you marinate with that.
Yeah, the only reason I know that is because of the Lego Batman movie.
Yeah.
All right, going over to Twitter, @FordofNerd, you can reach us. Hollywood Bones, Patrick Novacell, @NovaBeyond says, no. Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is a man physically outmatched. To defeat his opponent, he must outsmart his opponent, relying on his resources. Lex is a well-written, deeply layered villain. Now, I know Patrick very well. He's a diehard Superman fan.
Yeah, he is.
So this does, and don't get me wrong, I'm a diehard Superman fan as well. So like, this does not surprise me. I mean, in DC, it's a 1-2 punch for me. On any given day, I could swap Joker and Lex Luthor and make a argument. Right now I'm feeling though, and maybe it's just because we haven't had a decent Superman movie in a while, and we haven't seen a decent Lex Luthor since Gene Hackman. In the movies, I'm giving it to Joker. Slight edge. Still love you, Patrick, and I don't think you're wrong, but I'm just going to go the other way. Slightly, just very slightly.
I will say, check out, if you do get a chance, I don't know how much you watch the CW shows like Arrow and Flash and all that.
Yep.
They actually, on Supergirl right now, they have Lex Luthor. He's played by John Cryer, which you may know him from Two and a Half Men.
Well, and from the 80s movies.
From the was it the Brat Pack?
The Brat Pack stuff, yeah.
Yeah. He's actually on there as Lex Luthor, and he's apparently doing an incredible job.
I'll have to give it a look. Burn Excelsior @Dantes_Belmont just says, yes, ... Fair enough. Simple. I like it.
Definitive.
Yeah. The old bully goat @DSpin67 says, I don't know about number one. He is on the Mount Rushmore, though. That's
what I was talking about. Yep.
And then the funny thing is, and I gotta laugh, and I love Delvin Cox. Delvin Cox jumps in then on the socials here over on Twitter, and he was on the episode last week. He said definitely Joker's number one. And then he says, this is a tough question. There are 3 things I look for in a great villain. Are they compelling? Are they formidable? And have they ever accomplished their goals? Some of the villains I think about when it comes to this is Doctor Doom, Thanos, Bane, Luthor, Joker, and Kraven. To me, it doesn't matter how awesome you are if you never actually defeated a hero. So I don't really know from this answer if he's saying yes Joker or no Joker, but on the podcast he said yes. So Delvin, I'm assuming you're still on the yes train, but I don't disagree that you got to be a formidable opponent, you've got to be compelling, you got to accomplish your goal, and I know the Joker's goal is not defeating Batman.
Oh, absolutely not. It's just creating chaos.
It's creating chaos. Anyway, so I kind of thought it was funny. Gidget Von LaRue at Gidget Von LaRue didn't answer yes or no, but just posted a nice little gif of 1989 Michael Keaton Batman descending on a bunch of villains on the rooftop. And just for sheer audacity of my love of Michael Keaton's Batman, I wanted to bring that up. So
Beautiful.
I'm gonna say she's probably on board with the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Alexis McNeil at Alexis McNeil 5 says, yes, he is. After him is other Batman villains, because let's face it, there is no better comic book characters than there are in Gotham.
Oh, for sure. I would say, like, in terms of villains, Batman's villains and I would say Spider-Man's villains are probably among the best. For sure.
Yeah, they've got a good rogues gallery. Both of them do. I mean, gosh, you look at Batman, right? Like, just the heavy hitters alone. Just the heavy hitters. Joker, Two-Face, Riddler, Penguin, gosh, I mean, just that right there. And then he's got like what I consider like kind of like the second tier, like, you got like Mr. Freeze, and you've got oh gosh, what's his name? Bane, and and there's like, Poison Ivy. Just a lot of other good ones, but like in the top though, it's like Joker, Riddler, Penguin,
sure.
Two-Face. I mean, just, boom, right up there. But then Spidey though's got, I mean, gosh, Green Goblin, Doc Ock. I mean, what they call his the Sinister Six, right? Venom. You got Rhino. You got, gosh, what else?
Shocker.
Shocker. Mysterio. I mean, just, gosh, yeah, Spider-Man really well as well. So that is all we got for answers. Thank you, Super Friends, so much. I love interacting with you week in and week out. It's one of my favorite parts of the show. And Mark, let me ask you a question. Our Super Friends are out there. How can they help us this week? If they could do one thing, maybe two things for us, what could they do for us to help us out? Yeah,
well, for one thing, you can leave an iTunes review. That can certainly help. And also, you can probably write on the socials as well for Fortress of Nerditude at FortNerd.
Tell a friend. That's what I always say. Tell a friend.
Absolutely.
Tell two. Delvin actually last week says, take your buddy's phone and look at it and then just go subscribe to the Fortress of Nerditude for him or for her. And just don't tell them. And I was like, that's genius.
Surprise, surprise.
So social engineer a little hacking and, subscribe them to the Fortress of Nerditude. And then one day they'll be like, what is all this? And maybe they'll give it a listen.
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan.
Okay, Mark. So the reason I wanted to have you on, besides the fact that we're old friends stemming back from 300 and we've spent time together, is that you and I are both Star Wars nerds and we love Star Wars.
Absolutely.
And something happened this weekend. What happened this weekend, Mark? You want to tell the Super Friends what was going on?
It's just a small meetup, small get-together of some nerds who like to dress up as Jedi and Mandalorians and the Sith and all that kind of stuff. It's a little thing called Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah, my hometown, Chicago.
Chi-Town.
Yeah, so Star Wars Celebration was this last weekend, and a lot of information was dropped. Where do you want to begin? What do you think, if we were going to pick one thing, what do you think was the biggest thing that was announced?
By a long shot, Episode 9.
Yes. All right, so let's start there, and then we can kind of go into whatever else. Not only did we get a name for Episode 9, which is Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker,
Mm-hmm.
we also got a teaser trailer, which
yeah, I was
shocked we were going to get.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering if we were going to get an either-or kind of situation where they were just going to give us a name, or they might give us a little bit of a teaser trailer but hold off on the name. And the fact that, they just fired on all cylinders and did both. I was like, oh, yes, give me all the Star Wars goodness.
Yeah, I was really shocked by that. So let's talk about just the name first. The Rise of Skywalker. How does that sit with you? Like, how does that strike you?
Not gonna lie, the first time I heard it, I was like, what? Maybe? That was basically how I felt about, like, why? Why would it be named that? And it's kind of, it really just raises more questions than answers, which I'm sure that was J.J. Abrams' intent.
Sure, yeah.
Obviously,
I think episode 7, if that, instead of being called The Force Awakens, if that had been entitled like The Rise of Skywalker before we'd seen the movie, before anything came out, I think that would have felt better to me, because I would be like, oh, great, something's going to happen with Luke, or something's going to happen with Leia, and it's, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in episode 9, especially coming on the heels of 7, where Luke is MIA the entire film, and in episode 8, The Last Jedi, where, spoilers, Luke dies, and he doesn't really want to have anything to do with training Rey, and doesn't want to be a part of anything anymore. This name, to me, at this point, feels like a hard left turn.
I see, and certainly that was how I felt when I read it, when I saw the title. But after doing some reading and doing some thinking, it makes sense if you think about it this way. And I guess credit goes to, there was a particular article on IGN that I was reading. And they were talking about, everybody seems to look with The Last Jedi at the fact that, everybody in that movie was about killing the past. Yeah. Kylo Ren's like, let the past die, kill it if you have to. Luke was like, it's time for the Jedi to end. And that's what everybody focuses on. And that's a good point. But you have to consider the end of the movie as well. The fact that at the end of the movie, Luke turns his philosophy, where basically, he's willing to, now granted, using a force projection from who knows how far away,
right?
But he's finally willing to step in a little bit. He changes his mind about teaching Rey. And ultimately, he says, one of the very last lines he says is the rebellion is reborn, and I am not the last Jedi. And so the point is that Luke, even though he went down to this deep, dark place, and he ends up actually dying, becoming one with the Force, whatever, he essentially has turned back to a more optimistic view. And then what's the very last shot of the film? The very last shot of the film of The Last Jedi is that one child on Canto Bight.
Yep.
And he's force sensitive. And he's got the resistance ring. And so when the movie talks about the rise of Skywalker, it's talking about the rise of Skywalker's legacy, in the fact that it continues on, and his ideals about, rising up for good and defeating the First Order and all that kind of stuff. It's rising up again in the form of the next generation. And that will be through Rey, obviously. She gets the old Jedi text, the ancient Jedi text at the end of the movie. Uh-huh. And she's learning everything. He says in the trailer, we've taught you everything we know. Now this is your fight. Basically, you're continuing on, and you are going to raise up this generation, and you are going to continue to bring on this legacy of not just Luke Skywalker himself, but the ideals, even though he kind of strayed a little bit, he came back and looked to represent. And so I think that's really what this movie is at least the title. Obviously, we haven't seen the whole movie.
Right.
So,
yeah,
but that's what where I think he's going with it.
I mean, you may not be wrong. I mean, it also could be a really hard misdirect because we could be talking about Ben Solo, who is also of a Skywalker lineage.
Yeah, that's possible.
I mean, that would seem even more far-fetched. But anyway, I don't hate the title. I know some people out there were like, "Oh, this is horrible." I don't hate it. I actually like the sound of it. I just don't know thematically how it's going to fit in with the movie yet. So to me, that's kind of a question mark.
Yeah.
That I'm kind of, like waiting just kind of see how that pans out. But they did show a teaser trailer. There was a lot kind of going on. I mean, we start off seeing Rey in the desert and she's kind of looking, and then like she grabs her lightsaber, she ignites it, and then you immediately hear like the far off sound of a TIE fighter. It turns out to be an advanced TIE fighter. And then you see her running and jumping, and she's, landing on top of this, or what looks like it's maybe going to land on top of this because it kind of, cuts away.
Mm-hmm.
You hear Luke Skywalker kind of talking over, doing a voiceover, looking at a bunch of stuff. We see an action sequence of what looks to be someone flying the TIE fighter, which to me, those gloves look like it's Kylo Ren.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, it looks just like his. We see some of this, this world at night, and there's, a bunch of flying scenes. We see Kylo Ren just like taking down, people in this forest with stormtroopers going on around him. We see him kind of reforging his helmet that he, went all, whiny teenager on and destroyed previously.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like he's kind of, re-embracing that and maybe kind of stepping away from, the Ben Solo side of him that we kind of saw more of in The Last Jedi with trying to connect with Rey to like, I'm going to embrace more, the Knights of Ren and the Kylo Ren persona.
Mm-hmm.
We see some Finn and Poe together again, which I'm kind of happy about. They're on this like desert planet. They're kind of going around. We see a little BB-8 action. One of the things though that I really loved is, we see C-3PO kind of in an action sequence with Finn and Poe. We see a little bit of BB-8. But we get a shot where we see the Millennium Falcon, and who is freaking piloting the Millennium Falcon? None other than Lando Calrissian. I'm talking Billy D. Williams, the original Lando.
Oh, absolutely.
Man, oh man, did that just make me happy to see that. I mean, we know originally it was his ship, then it was Han's ship. He's like one of Han's really good buddies, and there's a lot of kind of established backstory there. I just loved it. Someone did point it out, though, that the antenna, the radar dish on top of the Millennium Falcon was back to a circle again. Because there is this, there is the thing where, Lando says that he hated what had been done to it, that he lost the dish and da-da-da-da-da. So we're away from the rectangle back to the circle, which I think is classic Millennium Falcon, and I love
Nice.
that.
Yep.
That's my hashtag my Millennium Falcon. But the one last thing, and this is where this like little teaser trailer ends. We see Rey and Finn and Poe on kind of these cliffs overlooking this sea with this big wreckage in the sea. And that definitely is a piece of the Death Star.
One of them, at least.
One of them for sure. Definitely a piece. Now, to me, that either says we are on Yavin or the forest moon of Endor. But it doesn't look like either of those two planets. But that also could be, that once this big massive hulk of, machinery and metal crashes into the planet, it could have changed the ecosystem. It could have drastically altered it. It's also been like 30 years.
Yep.
So that's okay for me. But like right as that was like, you see that, and then like right as it kind of goes to the black and it's fading out, we hear a cackling laughter that is most definitely Emperor Sheev Palpatine.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like that, the fact that Luke says the line, "No one's really ever gone," right before that particular cackle.
Yes.
I mean, that's really foreshadowing.
I don't know how they're going to bring Palpatine back into this. I don't know what that's about, but man, oh man, oh man, did that get me just pumped.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
So freaking pumped. Because I really wanted Snoke to be really kind of a cool villain. But I mean, we barely saw any of him in Force Awakens, and then in The Last Jedi, he was dispatched so quick.
Yep. Honestly, I think Snoke was more of a red herring for what Ben is supposed to be, what Kylo Ren's supposed to be. And if I had to guess, obviously it's a guess because I'm not in the know. I'm not J.J. Abrams' buddy. I believe in some way the Emperor will be a Force ghost.
I think so too. Like, he has to be, right?
Yep. I mean, if the Jedi can access Force ghosts, you better believe the Sith can, or whatever they may call them now, Dark Jedi, whatever you want to call them. I don't know if they still technically are called the Sith or not. But yeah, you better believe that they could probably access Force ghosts as well. So that's the only thing I can think of, is that, you know, in some way the Emperor will try to start to pull strings about, you know, trying to help, you know, push Kylo Ren along.
So this is kind of probably not canon anymore, but back in the old days of the extended universe, the expanded universe, that when it was canon, in the Timothy Zahn books that he did, the original Thrawn trilogy, there's a moment when Ben Kenobi as a Force ghost is basically telling Luke that he's no longer going to be able to return, because basically if you're a Force ghost, it means you haven't really fully let go of this life. And you're kind of somewhat clinging on to it, but eventually you have to move on with the Force and you don't have the ability to come back anymore. And that kind of was canon for a really, really, really long time. And so I look at it as like, if that idea were still persistent and still a real thing canon-wise, that would make sense for Palpatine being a Force ghost, because there's no way he would be at peace with the Force and move on.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like they may have departed from that.
I agree.
Just because of Yoda's appearance in. But I mean,
he did appear as a Force ghost in Return of the Jedi as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, then why didn't he appear somewhere over the course of the last, 30 years or so, when Luke was having problems with the Knights of Ren and Kylo Ren,
Yeah.
Just
good question.
So yeah, there's some of that. Anyway, we're going to move on, but man, we got the name, The Rise of Skywalker. We got a teaser trailer, just enough to whet your appetite to want more. This thing's coming out in December. It's going to be the biggest thing this year outside of Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I mean, I don't know which one's going to make more money in the end, probably Endgame, but I mean, this is the final film in kind of this franchise. I know they're going to make others, but in this kind of main story, so it could be a big thing. But Mark, what else was out there that caught your eye at Star Wars Celebration?
The one other one that I would say really caught my eye. Now, I'm sure there's other huge announcements that came out, but at least the next one on my list would be the trailer for Respawn and EA's newest Star Wars game, one that we had been gotten a little hint from Respawn like several months back about this game called Jedi Fallen Order. They have officially introduced a trailer for it, and so basically this is the story of this Padawan who is going through basically the aftermath of Order 66, which for those who may not know what that is, Order 66 was introduced in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. It was basically the order that Palpatine had basically integrated into the all the clone troopers,
Right.
to execute all of the Jedi, because they were, at that point, once the order was executed, they were traitors to the Republic, and so basically it was the systematic killing of the Jedi. And so this is the story of a Padawan who is going into hiding and trying to survive the aftermath of Order 66 and the rise of the Empire, which looks awesome. It's a single player game, no multiplayer, no microtransactions, which they made a big point of, because obviously with EA and Battlefront 2, they got a lot of heat over the microtransactions in that game, and also a lot of the multiplayer elements. So this is very much a single player story. Obviously what we saw was pretty much, rendered cutscenes. There was no actual gameplay or anything like that, but I'm interested. I'm on board. Obviously this takes place in between Episode 3 and Episode 4, and it's interesting to see how they explore different aspects and different characters and different points of the Star Wars history. What did you think about it, Spencer?
I tell you what, Mark, I love a good Star Wars game. I wanted Battlefront to be this amazing Star Wars game and a great experience, and I felt like the first one was just kind of okay. It kind of fell victim to the, hey, you've got to have friends online to kind of play sort of scenario. So I've been saying for a while that I want a good first-person Star Wars game. I didn't play the Force Unleashed games. I had the first one, I think, on PS3, and I feel like I played a little bit of it, but then I got distracted and I never finished it. If those things had been redone or in an HD version on the PS4, I may go back and get those two and play through them. I have been jonesing, and I mean jonesing, for a good Star Wars game since Knights of the Old Republic. I mean, that to me is like the high watermark in single player Star Wars games. So this looks good, but like you said, it's just the pre-rendered cutscenes. There's no gameplay footage. I want to know more about this. Is this going to be like a 10, 12 hour game, or is this going to be like a 20, 30 hour game? Is it going to have elements of kind of, action RPG, or is it just going to be kind of a straight through, kind of like an Uncharted type of, action adventure game just set in Star Wars? There's a lot of unknowns, but I'm going to get this game.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
I'm going to get it. So,
and I believe it comes out, was it November?
November 15th.
Yeah.
So it comes out the end of this year.
Gotcha. So we don't have long to wait for it. I feel like we're going to see some more information probably at E3.
Yeah.
So, and we'll probably get some gameplay by then. But yeah, I'm on board for it. I'd love to see more about it. Like you said, I'm so ready for a good single player story driven Star Wars game. So I'm definitely ready for this, and it's interesting to explore, what's it like to be basically a Jedi in hiding after such a horrible thing like the Order 66, and there's like I believe they sort of hinted at that the villain of the game is an Inquisitor called the Second Sister, I believe.
Seventh Sister.
Yeah.
Yep.
So obviously they're hunting Jedi. So he's got to basically hide his Force abilities as much as he can, which obviously at some point he won't be able to hide it. And he's a Padawan, so he was technically still in training, never was a full-fledged Jedi. So, it's his struggle with learning his powers by himself, basically. And so I believe they got, his name is, I want to say it's Cameron Monaghan. He's the guy that plays essentially the Joker on Gotham.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the voice actor playing the main character. If I remember correctly, his name's Cal Justice. In this game. So Cameron Monaghan is an incredible actor. He does a great job with playing that character on Gotham. So I'll be really interested to see this sort of dimension and how he pulls it off in the game. But yeah, I'm on board for sure.
Yeah, it looks good. And I did forget that in that trailer we saw Seventh Sister. I was first introduced to that character in Star Wars Rebels, the animated show, and the Inquisitors are kind of a cool character. There's a number of them. So anyway, I'm on board. I mean, come November, it's gonna be Star Wars with the video game. In December, it's gonna be a movie. Also, though, coming up, more information that was released in November. So, November could be a really, really, really heavy Star Wars month for me. We talked about the Disney Plus streaming service. One of the big shows that has been slated and scheduled is The Mandalorian. It's going to follow one of the Mandalorian mercs. It's going to be played by, what's his face? The guy that was in Game of Thrones, Pedro Pascal, who played the Viper. He's going to be in it. Carl Weathers is going to be in this as another kind of mercenary. This to me looks like, I think it takes place after Return of the Jedi. As I recall, I think it takes place after Return of the Jedi. And it's basically going to be about this Mandalorian and kind of what is going on. So I've heard that they've compared it to imagine Clint Eastwood and some of the Westerns, living out on the fringes, except this is, set in the Star Wars universe, kind of the underworld, which I think is a great way to do a Star Wars movie, but in a TV show, because this is going to be very stylized and it's going to feel very cinematic from everything that I'm seeing. They did a big panel on it. They showed a preview. If you were at Star Wars Celebration, we haven't seen that preview yet. It hasn't actually hit anywhere, officially at least. But there's a bunch of information online about this. It looks well cast. The photos that have been released look amazing. I don't know about you, but this is dropping on November 12th on Disney Plus, which is day one for Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah.
I think that this alone is worth the cost of $7, at least for the first month.
Absolutely. I'm on board definitely for watching it. They had me at Jon Favreau, excuse me.
Right, yeah.
Which I love him. I love his directing abilities. He directed the first Iron Man movie. He's a great actor. He's obviously Happy Hogan.
Yep.
I'm excited about that. And then obviously they've got Dave Filoni working on it, which he's heavily involved on the animated side.
Yeah.
As well. With those two powerhouse creative people, you can't go wrong with that. And then the great cast they've got and everything looks beautiful. I'm definitely going to check it out for sure, just to see what they do with it and how much they expand upon the Star Wars universe for sure. So I'm down for it, definitely.
The other cool thing I think is that they're bringing on a lot of really talented directors and big name directors to do episodes, like Taika Waititi, who most recently did Thor Ragnarok, and that was an amazing film. He knocked that out of the park. He's going to be directing an episode of The Mandalorian.
Oh, that's going to be good.
And so it's I just feel like this is being done in a way that it's going to be a quality product. It's going to have high budget, so it's going to look amazing. And it's new stuff. We're going to be getting away from kind of the Skywalkers and the Jedi. We're going to be exploring other parts of the galaxy. And let's be honest, this world building that was done and all these other things, there's so much to show other than just kind of what we've seen. And so I think it's just it's a wonderful opportunity to kind of keep us in that universe, but let us explore something new and, fall in love with new characters and whatnot. I mean, I love it. I'm all on board. So anyway, that was, a lot of information came out about The Mandalorian. It'll be available November 12th on Disney+. Did you see anything or read anything about the Clone Wars?
I did watch the trailer for, I believe it's season 7 now.
Yep.
For Clone Wars. I mean, it looks cool. Full disclosure, I have not watched all of the episodes of Clone Wars. I've seen it before, for sure. And I've also seen bits and pieces of Rebels as well. I just, unfortunately, with the animated side, I haven't been able to follow it as closely. But, I'm excited to have more Star Wars stuff, and I'm sure the Clone Wars fans are super excited to have one more season of Clone Wars after, it was canceled
right.
a while back, and nobody could have seen this coming. But here we are, and they're in season 7, and it looks great. It looks very much the same style as they did with the original Clone Wars series. I personally enjoy Ahsoka Tano, and obviously there's more of her in this series, and obviously foreshadowing the return of a particular spiky-haired Sith Lord.
Yep.
I say spiky-haired. I don't think it's actually his hair, but good old Darth Maul.
Mm-hmm.
They showed him in the trailer, which. Who would have known that, everybody thought after episode 1, it's like, okay, he's gone, chopped in half, he's done. But then you see him in Rebels, you see him in Solo, and he's very much back. I'm pretty sure he has, robotic legs now or something?
Yeah, his bottom half is robotic.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, and you're not wrong. Like, I felt in Phantom Menace that killing Darth Maul like that, I was like, no, like he was a very entertaining, exciting villain. Let's see more of this. And then they just kind of moved on, and we didn't get any more Darth Maul for years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was glad that they brought him back. I have seen a good chunk of the Clone Wars. I've seen about half of Star Wars Rebels. I enjoy both. It's one of those things where I try to get back to it. I'm trying to watch it with my kids, but my kids kind of lose interest, and then they'll kind of get back into it for a little while, and then they'll lose interest again because they're still just a little too young to kind of really want to watch that on their own. But I love the fact that they're going to bring back these characters, and that after 6 years of being gone, they're going to bring it back, and they're planning to do it right and then close out the series on their own terms. It's not hitting Disney Plus on day one, but it will be during the first year.
Okay, cool.
So it is good to know, like, this will be during the first year. So you will get this sometime between November of 2019 and November of 2020.
Nice. That'll be good.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm glad that, a lot of these shows, like another, and I know it's a different franchise, but like a lot of shows are getting second life. And that's such a beautiful thing. Like another example that I have, DC Universe, the streaming service that they have, they were able to bring back Young Justice, which was a huge, like, people loved that show, and then Cartoon Network canceled it, and it was gone for a while. But through the DC Universe app, they were able to bring the show back and bring new life into it and continue the story the way they wanted to. And same goes with this. It's a beautiful thing that they can actually go back and just really bring a conclusion to the story. So good on them for that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be one of those things where as soon as it Disney Plus drops, I think one of the things I'm going to go and watch the Clone Wars. Although I'm going to go look up a guide because I've seen a couple seasons of the Clone Wars, and I've seen the Clone Wars animated movie, and there's some time shifting things that kind of go on. Like one takes place before the other, and then one's kind of like a prequel to some of the others.
Oh,
and so
weird. Okay.
I want to go and like figure out like, okay, here's the order you need to watch it in because it makes the most sense then, timeline wise. I don't need Star Wars to be Doctor Who. I don't need the wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff.
No.
Like let's just make this, happen and make it easy to understand. So
Sure.
there wasn't a lot of, there was a lot of like little things. Like I saw that they're making Coke and Sprite in kind of these like little bottles that kind of look like thermal detonators. That
Nice.
they're probably going to be selling at like Disney's Galaxy's Edge.
Galaxy's Edge, yeah.
But I think they're also going to find their way into like the Mandalorian TV show. So therefore they will kind of be officially canon. And you can see it's the colors of a Coke and it's the colors of like Sprite, but it's written in the language of like Coruscant, and so it's got the kind of the Star Wars look about it.
Nice. Okay.
So like little things like that is shown. Obviously, a bunch of footage. I've actually, Mark, got a full Jedi outfit. I just need to finish my spats for my boots, and then I'm going to join the Rebel Legion and do some trooping with them and, do some costume stuff with them on a more permanent basis. And so I know some of the people in that group, they actually went out to Chicago for Star Wars Celebration. And then, of course, May 4th is coming up here real soon.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan. That's all I'm saying. A lot of stuff happening right now.
And we just need to enjoy it while it's here because, I know that they mentioned, especially after episode 9, they're like, we're going to take a break for a while. We're going to put this on hiatus. So I know they'll probably have more than one season of these new shows that they're putting out, like especially on Disney Plus. But in terms of like the mainstream movies and stuff like that, it's going to be a while after 9. So we just need to enjoy it while it's here.
I won't be surprised if there's about a 3-year layoff before the next Star Wars movie.
Sure. Absolutely.
That won't surprise me. I keep holding out that D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, the showrunners for Game of Thrones that have been greenlit to do some Star Wars movies, I'm holding out hope that they are going to adapt the Knights of the Old Republic storyline and make that into a movie. Oh my gosh, I would be in heaven if that happened. Just in heaven.
Absolutely.
So, Mark, I think my question of the week, this Super Friends, is going to be this. I want to know how you feel about the name of Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I'm personally kind of on the fence. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I kind of want to know more about it, see how it fits. Mark, it sounds like you've kind of grown maybe accustomed to it, like you've kind of adapted to it a little bit more.
Yeah, it's still sort of a head scratcher for me. I'm not sure where they're going to go with it. I can see where they could take it and how it's more of a symbolism than more of a literal thing or referring to a person. But obviously we don't know exactly what that's pointing to. So I'm sort of a wait and see. It's not the worst title for this movie. I probably wouldn't have picked it, but hey, we'll see where they go with it.
Yeah, so Super Friends, that's the question of the week to you. How do you feel about the title for Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker? Let us know at all the normal places, our email, our Facebook, our Twitter. You can call in the voicemail number like Paul Calicote does from time to time, and that's 801-477-7687. We're also on Instagram now at For the Nerds. You could answer us there. And let us know, and we'll read those answers next week. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a lot of fun. I'm glad we were able to do this.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Spencer.
Oh, anytime. Tell the Super Friends how they can find the Good Morning Guys podcast, where they can find you on social media, and all of that good stuff.
All right, well, you can find the Good Morning Guys podcast basically wherever podcasts are compiled, whether that be iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all those different places. We're on Spotify. You can find our YouTube page. just by searching out the Good Morning Guys. Our Twitter page is at the GMG Podcast, so you can certainly find us there. You can also subscribe to our Discord page. I don't know the exact link to that, but I'm sure if you asked us for it on Twitter, we could get it for you. And you can certainly join our Discord. We have a lot of fun talking about all sorts of stuff, talking about a lot of dad jokes and stuff like that there. And my personal Twitter name is Musique829, so you can certainly find me there as well.
Awesome. Well, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you, always.